Hi, I'm Mark. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about my MGB GT. On the outside, I've had the car resprayed Old English white. This is the original factory colour, and during the process I had new wings, new doors, and some remedial rust removed from the rear wings. This was about 2.5 years ago, and actually they're starting to come back. The rear windows, as you can see just here, actually have a small leak in them, so that causes water to sort of penetrate the paint from here and rust the seam. It's not too bad at the minute, so it's not a pressing issue, but I'm sure it's going to get worse over time, so we should get that sorted reasonably soon. The other thing with the outside is, because I use it only sparingly, is that it's in pretty good condition. The only thing that's starting to go is small stone chips from behind the wheels, and also where I took the mud guards off just down here. You're starting to see where the mud guards are rubbing and actually rub the paint away, leaving what the original wings kind of came from from where they were made, that sort of matte black finish, which needs to be touched up. The other bad thing about the outside are the wire wheels. Although I love the way the wheels look, they are corroded, and they're a nightmare to get tyres for because you need inner tubes, and also the balancing never seems to be 100%. I don't know if this is because the places I take it don't have the right equipment, but what I think I'm going to do is maybe replace them with some different wheels, and then restore these in my spare time to bring them up to scratch for shows and whatnot, but keep the other wheels as a sort of everyday set of wheels. I'm not the biggest fan of these sunroofs. A lot of people are, and they did seem to come from the factory with them. I'm not sure if this is a factory option one on this particular car, but I just never use it, and I do feel it spoils the lines of the car somewhat. That smooth sort of coupe shape is marred a little bit by this vinyl roof, and it doesn't seem to sit properly on one side on this particular car. I don't know if this happens in all of them, but yeah, not a fan, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Under the bonnet, this car has been modified slightly from stock. I have a Weber carburettor. I have a full stainless steel exhaust system, the Tourist Trophy one from Moss. It has a lightened flywheel, and also addressing one of the MGB's weak points is to fit electronic ignition. The original ignition system wasn't necessarily unreliable as such when it was first made, although poor maintenance could mean that points, condensers, rotor arms, that sort of thing could wear. But I found it's actually the reproduction products offered today that actually spoil the old ignition system. So the condensers, as I mentioned, and also the rotor arms can be really poor quality, and that can lead to a lot of unreliability, often attributed to unreliability of the original design, but actually it's the reliability of the aftermarket products. The 123 system is good. It's the customisable one that I've got with the curves that you can program yourself. I've not had it on a rolling road to put these in properly yet. I will do that, but it does seem to run quite nicely, and I've not had any, touch wood, there's no wood around, not had any problems with it, and it starts a lot better, gives a really smooth idle. Yeah, and I'd highly recommend it. They're not cheap for the programmable ones. I think I paid £300 or £400 for it, but to fit it yourself is really simple, and yeah, highly recommended. So do these performance modifications add up to big power gains? No is the short answer. These cars were never fast, and even by tweaking them a little bit you can't get a whole lot of power from them. I think with further head work you can eke out a bit more. But in the whole 18-year life of MGB production, these cars barely changed performance-wise, so not a lot of attention was ever given to actually hotting up the engine too much. The works cars did reasonably well in competition back in the 60s, but during the 70s and, well, during 1980 and a lot later on, I think Leyland kind of gave up on these cars and sort of ceased to redevelop them. And in fact, if you live in North America, a post-1975 car will actually be considerably worse performing than a 60s car or early 70s car. Of course, there are the other models, the MGB GT V8, which was quite quick in its day, and the MGC, which could also be made to go really quick as well. People sort of say about the handling on those, and I think back during the launch of them, they were unfairly criticised handling wise, but with modifications and modern materials you can really get them performing quite well. But anyway, MGBs, not going to be fast unless you do a lot to them, but the handling is really good. If you get the handling sorted, even a stock setup with fresh components will give you a nice handling car. And the great thing about MGBs is that they are very predictable. You can get the tail out in the wet quite easily and not make it too frightening. Other performance modifications to this car, apart from things that have been done to the engine, are the rear shock absorber conversion. So I've got modern tube shocks rather than the lever units that were originally on this car. I've also added some cross-drilled brakes as well, which gives a bit of a better response from the brakes, which are pretty bad on this car. The later ones came with power brakes and even dual circuit brakes by the end of production, but this one doesn't even have power brakes and can lead to a very sort of woolly feeling when you try and stop this thing without considerable pedal effort. I must say with the cross-drilled brakes and EBC brake pads that the braking performance is improved slightly. I wouldn't say it was amazing, but it is a lot better. Future plans for this car, I do intend to put new wheels on and also lower the car slightly to give it a slightly better stance. The rear sits a little bit high, so I'd like to see that come down slightly and give it a bit more of a level look rather than being a bit high at the back. And who knows, I might even go for some more performance improvements to the engine, whether that's to do the head or even something more drastic like a supercharger, but they're very expensive, so I'm not sure whether putting a really expensive supercharger on a slightly worn engine is a good idea, but who knows, might do something like that in the future. In the interior I've fitted this nice wood rim steering wheel, as well as fitted dark red leather all around. The trim I bought from Mirror Trim consisted of the seat covers, the door cards, as well as the things in the footwell and the rear trim pieces as well. At the same time, from the same company, I bought a light grey carpet, which I think goes really well with the dark red leather. One of my favourite things about the inside of the car isn't the full leather interior or the new carpets. It's actually a modification I've made to the centre console to include an Android 7-inch tablet. This tablet serves to play media. It's also there for satellite navigation, but one of the really nifty things that it does is via Bluetooth it talks to my ignition system and displays the output as a digital dashboard, which is really good because the gauges in here aren't the most accurate gauges and the speedo wanders everywhere, so with a reliable sort of GPS signal I can get a GPS speedo readout down there, which probably contradicts what's reading on my gauge, and the GPS speedo will probably be more accurate. The other great thing about the 123 ignition readout via Bluetooth on the tablet is it gives me an accurate rev reading as well. My rev counter seems to be a bit haywire. I don't know if it's because the capacitors inside have dried out or if it's just worn, but sometimes it seems to read double or even more than the actual revs of the engine, whereas the 123 ignition readout via Bluetooth gives me accurate readings straight from the distributor. So what's this thing like on the road? Well, as you can imagine, it's quite old school, and this one in particular, being an early one, it's got a noisy 3-synchro gearbox. That doesn't really mean a lot, except that it's very hard to get into first gear because there's no synchro mesh. You either have to come to a complete stop or try and blip on the downshift to match the revs. I'm not particularly good at this, so I get it with unsurprisingly infrequency. Now these early cars are great for sort of high days and holidays, and I love mine. I use it as often as I can. But really the later ones, I had a mint rubber bumper model in my 20s. That was my daily driver, and it was actually surprisingly good. It drove okay, it kept up with modern traffic, but that had a different set of brakes. It was higher riding, which people really criticise, but it was actually okay for daily driving because you could get over speed humps okay. And then because it was just in a better condition car, it seemed to just be fine. And apart from catastrophic engine failure at one point, it gave me quite little trouble. This particular car, with its performance upgrades, does drive quite nicely. It has nice turning. It makes a nice noise. It doesn't give you that sort of push you in the back of your seat kind of feeling that a proper, modern sports car would give you, but it's still quite good. It does sound quite nice, although I'm only really doing about 50-ish miles an hour, and that's just what my speedo on here is telling me. It could be more like 40. Now these cars aren't ever going to fetch Jaguar or Aston Martin money. There's just too many of them, and they're just not pretty enough. But that being said, I do think they're great value. They look really good. They've got that classic 60s GT shape, and because they are getting old now, it's less. You get less of the, oh, I know someone who had one of those, oh, I know one of these, oh, MGBs, they break down all the time, oh, blah, blah, blah. Because now they're just another classic 60s sports car, and people do look fondly at them. But you always get the detractors saying that they're far too common and whatnot. But for me, this is a very enjoyable classic car, and costs a fraction of a price of like a dream classic car such as a Jaguar or Aston Martin. Now, I'm not comparing them like for like because they are very different, and this is a mass-produced car. But for me, it suits my needs. I can get spares, and I can just enjoy it without fear of ruining or wrecking it or have some hugely costly bill. That's all there is to say really about my MGB GT. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I will be making some more of these as I fix and repair it and add some more modifications. And tell me what you want to see. If I've missed something out or you want to know more about the car, then I'm happy to respond in comments or produce another video which is has a bit more detail on certain parts of it. See you later.